When people hear the word stable, they automatically picture walking around, smiling, back to normal. But that's not what's happening here. The new reports are painting a different picture. He's still being monitored, still being kept in care through the new year. And the way insiders are describing it. This isn't just soreness you shake off with rest. And what's really making fans pause is the contrast. 10 days ago, everything was loud. Money talk, big fight talk, victory energy. Now, it's quiet. The kind of quiet that only shows up when the people around you don't want to say too much too early. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the first day after something like this is adrenaline. The real reality shows up later. When the body cools down, when the sleep doesn't come easy, when the mind starts replaying moments it didn't ask to remember. And that's why this part 2 matters. Because the story is no longer the headline. The story is what happens in the hours after the cameras leave. But that wasn't the whole story. At first, people were treating this like a tragic wrong place, wrong time situation. But now the explanation being repeated isn't random. It's specific. Investigators and officials are pointing to a tire burst, and they're linking that to excessive speed. Others are repeating a detail that keeps coming back. An overtaking maneuver right before everything went wrong. And when you start hearing the same points from multiple directions, it shifts the conversation. Because now people aren't just reacting emotionally. They're asking accountability questions. Not in a blame game way, but in a how did this happen on a major road in broad daylight way. Another detail that's quietly doing damage online. The stationary truck. Because that introduces a bigger issue that a lot of people outside Nigeria don't understand. Broken down or parked heavy vehicles on major roads are not rare, and they can become deadly obstacles when traffic is moving fast. So now, this isn't just a celebrity story. It's turning into a road safety story. And that's exactly how a situation like this starts spreading beyond boxing fans. And what people found out next made the whole thing feel even heavier. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is being described as one of the most dangerous roads in the country. And once that label gets attached to a story like this, it changes how the public reacts. Because now the question isn't only what happened, it becomes how often does this happen? And the numbers being discussed are grim. Road incidents are not a rare headline. They're a pattern. People are pointing to the conditions. Heavy traffic, rush driving, weak enforcement, vehicles in poor condition, and those massive trucks that turn the highway into a moving maze. That's why the public reaction isn't just sympathy, it's frustration. Because when a high-profile incident happens, it forces a spotlight onto problems regular people have been complaining about for years. And suddenly, the world is listening. And here's what makes it more intense. When officials say there will be a comprehensive investigation, that sounds like a promise. But people want to know what that actually means. New rules, stronger enforcement, safer transport standards, or just another headline that fades. That tension between grief and anger is exactly what keeps this story alive online. But then the internet locked onto one specific detail, and it got strangely personal. One of the biggest reasons this story is spreading is not even the official updates. It's the way people are trying to mentally solve it. You've probably seen it. Endless comments focusing on where people were sitting, who was on which side, and what that might have meant. To be clear, a lot of the talk online is speculation. People are filling in blanks because that's what humans do when something feels too sudden to accept. But the reason this topic sticks is deeper than internet curiosity. When people ask, how did one person survive while others didn't? What they're really asking is, could that have been me? They're trying to turn chaos into something that makes sense, something they can control. That's why you'll see debates about seatbelts, positioning, and split-second outcomes. Not because people are being disrespectful, but because this kind of story makes everyone feel exposed. Like life can flip in one moment, even when you think you're protected. And that brings us to the detail that hit fans the hardest, because it showed what the mood was right before everything changed. This is the part that's haunting people. The normal content right before the tragedy. A simple moment, a casual clip, the kind of post you scroll past every day without thinking twice. And then hours later, the entire timeline becomes something else. That whiplash is why fans can't let go of this story. Because it's not just something happened, it's how fast it happened. 1 minute it's jokes, training energy, everyday life. Then suddenly it's hospital updates and memorial messages. And that's also why people keep saying the same line in different ways. Life is bigger than boxing. Because when you zoom out, this isn't about a sport anymore. This is about how quickly your circle can change, especially when your circle is small and tight. Which leads to the part most people don't want to say out loud. The sport world can replace opponents. It can't replace your people. And that's where the tone shifted, even among rivals. You can tell how serious something is by how the loudest people suddenly get quiet. And in this situation, you saw something rare. Rivals speaking like humans first, fighters second. Tributes weren't just generic. They were specific. They highlighted how close those two men were to him, how constant their presence was, how much they mattered behind the scenes, the type of people casual viewers don't notice until they're gone. And one comment that hit hard came from the idea that boxing doesn't count right now. That line spread because it's true. The belt, the money, the hype. None of it means anything when your day turns into survival and loss at the same time. And that's also why talk of the next mega fight went cold immediately. Because even if the body heals, the mind doesn't just switch back on because a contract is ready. Which brings us to the real twist in this story. The crash may not be the thing that decides his future. The aftermath might. And then one new detail surfaced that made people rethink what recovery even means. Before anyone talks about comebacks, contracts, or the next big fight, there are two names that keep surfacing over and over, like the internet is refusing to let them fade into the background, because these weren't random people in the car. These were the guys who lived in the shadows of the spotlight, the ones who show up early, stay late, and hold everything together when the cameras aren't rolling. Sinagami, Latif Latz Ayodele. If you followed his journey closely, you've seen them without even realizing it. In training clips, in behind-the-scenes moments, in quiet photos where the energy looks normal. Because that's what real loyalty looks like. Not loud, just constant. And what's making people emotionally attached is how fast the support turned into action. Within hours, the conversation shifted from shock to how do we honor them? That's when the fundraiser started circulating, not as some random internet trend, but as a real attempt to build something in Latz's name. People weren't just leaving comments. They were putting money behind the respect. That's how you can tell who mattered. When a person is gone, and the first instinct is, let's build something that lasts, that means the connection was real. Not just in boxing, in community, in the way they treated people, in the way they carried themselves when nobody was watching. And then you start noticing the posts fans keep sharing. Clips of them laughing, training, being human. And it creates this heavy feeling. The last time the world saw them, they looked completely normal, like they had years ahead. So when people ask, how does someone move forward after something like this? It's not just about physical recovery. It's about the silence that follows when two familiar voices are suddenly missing. And that's when the story stops being about headlines and starts being about legacy. And that's where the next chapter takes a turn. One of the most powerful updates isn't even about him. It's about what people started doing for the men who passed. Because when donations start climbing fast, that tells you something. Those weren't just staff. Those were loved, those were respected. Those were the type of people who left a mark in rooms they didn't even own. And now, the public response is turning into legacy talk, charity, community impact, the kind of remembrance that doesn't disappear after the trending tab moves on. That's also why the story is sticking. It's layered. There's the survival. There's the investigation. There's the national road safety debate. There's the future of the career question. And then there's the human part. Two lives that mattered deeply to the person at the center of the headline. So here's the real ending question. Not, will he fight again? But, what does normal life even look like after your inner circle changes overnight? And if you've been watching this unfold, I want to know what you think. Does this make you view risk differently? Travel, speed, the road, any of it? Drop your take in the comments. If you want the next chapter when it drops, subscribe.